Hi guys, so you want to travel around the world? I just completed my trip around the world and I can tell you everything that I did. I have some notes I have prepared and I can tell you, I think, the most important things that you need to consider when planning your trip. Okay, so first of all, I planned my trip very spontaneous, probably the same way you are sitting in front of your phone or in front of your TV or laptop right now, and you think about, like, I would like to travel around the world. This is basically what I did. I had some countries that I wanted to visit, and I really had no clue really how to go about it, and I thought, okay, let's just start by planning it. So I basically mapped the entire trip around the world, and eventually I then spent a couple of days just thinking about it, if those are the countries I really wanted to visit. And then I just redid the entire thing, and then it was like, okay, which countries do I really want to visit? And those are the ones that I mapped out for my flight. Now, my first mistake, or not, it's not a mistake, I guess there's just many ways to go about it. But the first approach was to fly east. And so to go basically from Western Europe towards Asia, and from there Indonesia and Australia, then the Americas, and then Africa, and go back to Europe. This was my first plan. But then I realized that whenever you're flying east, you're flying towards the sunset. That means your days are shorter than 24 hours. So whenever you're traveling to a destination, you have less time to go sightseeing if you want to go sightseeing the same day. And so I realized, why don't I fly west? And I realized when I fly west, then my days are longer. And if I arrive at a destination, I have most of the day still available. So this is what I did. So I basically scrapped my plan B of where I wanted to fly east and changed everything by flying west. And this turned out to be a pretty good idea. So I had the longer days. So this is the first thing. I can recommend to you that you fly west. This is the best way to do it. So then whenever I planned my trip, I only wanted to take carry-on luggage rather than real luggage that has to be checked. I didn't want to spend too much time waiting for luggage. I didn't want to spend too much money on the cost. I'm not going to tell you yet how much I paid. This will be the last video where I say how much I spent overall. But I can tell you this, the cheapest possible way to fly around the world I found to be 1,201 euro, which is, I think, close to $1,300. And this is basically like 3 stops to fly around the world at like 15 hours each flight, and then you're done with it. So you could do that, but I also wanted to see something. My focus was to see and visit Asia, so I changed my plans to not just have 2 layovers, but to actually have much more. So I have a video where I can show you my actually flight route. If everything works, I'm going to insert it right here. So I flew from Europe to South America, then I flew to Australia. From Australia, then I did my trip through the Asian countries that I wanted to visit, and from there I basically flew back to Europe. So this was a very good trip. I spent overall 10 days. As you will find out, not everything that I planned turned out the way that I hoped for, but because every other day I basically had 1 day layover to make sure that if a flight gets cancelled or delayed, that I would not miss my connecting flights, and this would screw up my entire flight plan. So this is what I did, and this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, and so I can recommend that you do the same thing. So I also, when I booked my flights, so the first flight I booked was to fly to Santiago de Chile, and from Santiago de Chile to Australia. After I booked that flight, I had this moment, oh wait, I didn't check for visa requirements. And this was then something, every country that I wanted to visit, I basically Googled what are the visa requirements. And it turns out for Australia there was a visa requirement, even though I have a German passport. You need to have a visa to enter the country. And then I had my second surprise, and this was I saw that the processing time was between 4 and 28 days, and I was only 2 weeks away from my overall trip. So my heartbeat got up, or went up, and I basically filled out the application. It took about an hour to do this, answering all the questions, uploading all the documents, and within an hour the visa was approved. But I didn't know that beforehand. And the thing is, whenever you apply for a visa, they want to have the flight number of you entering the country, they want to have the booking of the hotel where you're staying, and they want to have flight number when you're leaving the country. So you basically have to book everything, and then you have to do the application, and then if the application process takes a long time, you're screwed. So I also wanted to visit Dubai and Kuwait and Iran, and India. They all had visa requirements that I need to apply for visa, and sometimes there's a fee involved. And since I was only 2 weeks away from starting my trip, I basically canceled all those countries in my trip. And this is something where you would have to plan 2 or 3 months in advance. You really have to book everything: flight in, flight out, hotels, and then you have all the information to fill out the visa application. So that's like the little downside on this one. Also, and this is only something that I found out once I actually entered, I think this was Malaysia, there was a sign that says if you're entering from an African country, please go this way for your yellow fever vaccination check. And this happened to me when I traveled through Central America to South America before, not on this trip, but some other time, where when I returned from Colombia to Panama, they asked me where my yellow fever vaccination card is. I didn't have one, so I was trapped in Panama for 6 days, which is the incubation period, and then I was allowed to leave the country if you're without any signs of illness. So make sure that you check if you need a yellow fever vaccination. That is probably easy to get if you do this in advance, but if you don't have it when you're traveling, you are screwed, because 6 days delay somewhere are really going to mess with you, or basically will be messing with your travel plans and your flights. Okay, so then what I also did, this was something that was important to me, because I have everything on my phone. I didn't print out anything. It was a paperless travel plan that I had. I made sure I had 2 phones with me. I had an old phone that had games on them and videos, so I had something to watch during the flight, which turns out I didn't need it for the big like transatlantic flights, because LATAM, which I chose to fly with, they have a big video selection, so this was great. But then the smaller carriers, they did not have any video on board. Basically, they didn't have anything on board. Everything you had to pay for, even a glass of water or a bottle of water. And so the second phone was a big help to keep myself entertained if I didn't sleep during the flight. And then I also said, as I am traveling, I wanted to try local foods, so I want to stay away from Burger King, McDonald's, KFC, and so on. And this was also a good idea, but since it happens that you cannot digest local food really well, I also packed some medication for stomach aches and diarrhea, which is also something that I happen to need during my trip. So I can also recommend you doing this. And even though I had my Visa card with me, I basically took like $50 a day in cash, which is not entirely, because I spent like 10 days there. I didn't take $500 with me. I took $400 with me, but this was something that turned out to be really handy to have money available for the bus, because I also said I don't want to spend too much money on taxi or cab rides, because I wanted to have the local experience. So whenever I get into a country, I want to take public transportation as much as possible. Okay, so now while we are doing all of this, there's one thing I can tell you right now. As you're planning a trip, try to avoid using not just EasyJet, because EasyJet is terrible, but AirAsia. AirAsia is absolutely horrible when it comes to punctuality, flight delays, flight cancellations. There are other videos that we'll probably see on YouTube where some travelers used AirAsia. I did myself, and basically every flight was delayed. And so this basically was a bad decision. I can only recommend using other airlines other than AirAsia. Okay, so I think this is the most important part. Once you travel, so you know what to expect, you'll spend between 1,200 euros and maybe 2,500, 3,000 depending on the flights. Once you get to Asia, the flights are really cheap to go from one country to the next. So you talk like $40 a flight per person. And if you come to South America, it's the same thing. If you go from Chile to Argentina to Brazil and so on, you talk about a very low two-digit number to fly there. So very inexpensive. Some flights you can find for $8, so it's really cheap. It's only the big from one continent to another continent flights that really cost a lot of money. But if you plan with enough like time ahead of you, you should be able to keep your costs down. And well, anyway, so I will continue my entire video series talking about my trip around the world. If this helps you, I'm glad. I'm not asking you to like and subscribe because everybody does that. And I think, actually, I enjoyed my trip so much. I think I will be traveling some more. So if you want to see those trips, then just remember this channel. All right.